Hey there, good evening, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So tonight we're doing the final episode of our series, Rock Musicians Who Thrilled Us But Have Since Passed On. This is episode number 60 for 2022, this year. So I wasn't actually originally going to do this year because I thought there might not be anybody worth doing, but there's been quite a few people that have passed this year. Drummers seem to always be at the forefront of this kind of thing. Anyways, so we've chosen to do two people. They've changed once. I had somebody else, but then somebody who I like quite a bit passed on. So much so I did a tribute to him. So anyways, we're doing Ian McDonald of King Crimson Foreigner fame, and Alan White, of course, of Yes. There was never any doubt about Alan White being in there. So anyways, how we're going to work this is pretty much the same way we always do. Those who passed first go first, so in this case it'll be Ian McDonald. Now, when I first decided to do Ian McDonald, I had thought that Ian McDonald of Foreigner was who I was doing. I hadn't realized that he was the same Ian McDonald from King Crimson. I did not know that they were the same person, although it should have been obvious, but it wasn't at first until I started researching it. Then, oh wow, I didn't know that was the same guy. So anyways, Ian McDonald was one of the founding members of King Crimson, and he was also one of the founding members of Foreigner. So two big bands, and I was thinking today that King Crimson is in the Hall of Fame, but now I'm not so sure about that. I have to go look it up after this is over, because I thought that King Crimson was in the Hall of Fame as a pioneer in the field of progressive rock. I'm pretty sure they are, but I might be wrong here. They might not be in there because they might not have been big enough to be warranted that. You know, they're big among people who really like progressive rock and who like King Crimson, which is pretty much everybody who likes progressive rock. But they're not, they didn't do that well. I guess the best way to put it, they weren't a big commercial success. So I'm thinking they might not be in there. But anyways, Ian McDonald played with both of them, and we'll start with our normal way. He was born June the 25th, 1946 in Australia. Sorry, can't read my own little scratching there. Wow, what the hell was that? I'm not sure what I wrote here. Australia, England, and he died February the 9th, 2022 at the age of 75 in New York City. Of course, he was rock, progressive rock, jazz fusion, and hard rock. I guess the rock part might be considered Foreigner, and they might be considered hard rock as well. He played sax, flute, keyboards, and guitar. And I believe he was proficient at just about all of them. And he wrote a lot of stuff for Foreigner and was in on their big stuff at the beginning too during their career, and then decided to leave because of the musical differences he had with Mick Jones, who's the de facto leader of Foreigner. Anyway, so he was with them for the first three albums. He was with King Crimson for the first album, and him and Giles left again because they had musical differences and friction between them, and probably Robert Fripp, who is the de facto leader of King Crimson. So he didn't do well against the de facto leaders. But anyways, he's a great musician, I think. You listen to the stuff that he was on. He was on the Court of the Crimson King, and those first three Foreigner albums, all really well done and really good playing by him on all those accounts, I think. And he did do some other stuff later. I think he did something with Steve Hackett. Yes, he did. He did the revisited Genesis thing with Steve Hackett. So yeah, so he has a lot of touch here in the progressive rock field. I quite enjoy the stuff that he's been involved with. But when I originally decided on him, I was thinking he was the guy from Foreigner who did those kind of things too. But I didn't put the two names together. I didn't make the connection until I started doing this. So he was actually active from 1968 till his death in 2022. Not too long ago, beginning of the year. And my hat's off, but I can't leave it off because you won't be able to see anything. To Ian Mcdonald. So the number 2 guy, Alan White, I have quite a long history with. He was one of the first progressive rock drummers I'd ever heard outside of Neil Peart, because this was the band that I eventually replaced. Yes was the band that replaced Rush at the top of my podium. So up from about, Rush took over from Kiss at the end of the 70s and stayed as my favorite band till about 1981, 82, like beginning of 81, end of 81, beginning of 82. And they were replaced by Yes. And Yes stayed on that podium until about 2001, 2002, when my daughter was born, and I started working at a pizza place delivering to try to make extra money because my wife was at home with the child. And I started being able to listen to a lot of stuff I haven't, because when you have a family you can't always do what you want. So I wasn't able to listen to a lot of my music because my daughter came along, and so once she came along, I was able to go out, and I was working, and since I had my car, I just brought my CDs and would play them while I was delivering. And that's when I started getting really back into music, and of course Yes was one of my favorite bands, but they were replaced by Rush at that time period, and Rush became my favorite band again. But Alan White has always, to me, been a really good drummer. Now, I know I've said this on past videos that I liked Bill Bruford more. And when I did like Bill Bruford's. But I don't know if it was because I so much liked Bill Bruford more, or I just liked the albums that he played on more than the ones that Alan played on. That might be more like it. I think Alan White is a very different drummer. Bill Bruford is more of a jazzy kind of drummer, and Alan White's more of a rock drummer, but a good one. He's a very good rock drummer. I mean, he came on, and the first albums that he was on were Tales of the Topographical Ocean and Relayer. I mean, it doesn't get much harder than that. Like, progressive wise, those are amongst the most progressive albums ever been put together. So I mean, he handled it and handled it well. I never thought anything less of his drumming. He's a great drummer. But I guess he had an impact on me with the Drama album, because the Drama album was the first Yes album I ever owned. I bought it because I was told that Yes is a great progressive band. I was interested in progressive rock, so I bought this album. It's very different than some of their earlier stuff and their later stuff. To me, it's kind of I don't even know what you say. It's kind of stands out from the other Yes albums. It doesn't sound much like the earlier Yes, but it sounds nothing like their pop era either. So to me, it's a master album, and Alan White was the drummer on that album. He was fantastic on that album, I think. So before we get too far along, I didn't do any of Alan's vitals here, so I should do them. I should have had a drink because I'm getting a cough now. June 14th, 1949, in Pelton County, Pelton County, Durham, in England. He died May the 26th, 2022, about a month or so ago, in Newcastle, England, right? Oh no, sorry, Newcastle, Washington in the U.S. I don't know what I was thinking there. So he was living in the U.S. by then. Anyways, his music was prog, pop rock, and hard rock. And he played the drums from 1967 to 2022. Now, the pop rock part, of course, comes with the Yes part after the progressive. But he also played with John Lennon originally in the John Lennon Yoko Ono band as their drummer. That's where he got his resume and was recommended to Yes. That's where it got started for him. Always an upbeat type of guy, very easy to get along with. He didn't seem to have a lot of conflict with a lot of members of the band, even though, like, you know, you had your John Anderson, Rick Wakeman, Steve Howe, Chris Squire camps, and he was kind of didn't get involved in that, and he just stayed with the band and loved being a member of Yes, and was supposed to go on tour with them this year, but the band announced about a week before his passing that he wouldn't be touring with the band this year, that he was not well, and then before you know it, he was gone. Usually when I hear that, that's kind of the kiss of death, and when I heard that he wasn't going to be touring, I thought, oh, that's not a good sign. And of course he passed. So Alan White, loved you, buddy. You were great. I love that hat that he used to wear all the time too. But he looked like such a rock drummer when he was younger too, you know. And Yes will continue to tour. They got the other guy who was playing alongside with him on the tours anyways, and he'll probably just take over the drum set. Yes is one of those bands who hasn't had an original member now since Chris Squire's passing. And they'll probably continue on. I don't know what'll happen once Steve is gone, because he's the only kind of semi-original left. So once Steve's gone, I don't know if they'll pack it in or they might continue. You know, it's hard to say. You know, maybe John Anderson or Rick Wakeman or one of the others will step up and take over. I don't know. It would really be nice to see Anderson, Wakeman, and Howe kind of put it aside and play together one more time, and Yes, and maybe even do a real album, you know. But we tried this before, and their results weren't that great. I tend to agree with the guy from Sea of Tranquility, who says that they really haven't made a great album since the early 70s. I can't really argue with that, you know. Yeah, there's a few good tracks on Fly From Here, and there's a few good tracks on The Ladder, and there's one good track on the new album that's pretty good. But overall, it's just been very mediocre. It's certainly not representative of a Hall of Fame band like Yes. To me, they really haven't made anything substantial since Drama. You know, even the 90125 album, which it was very poppy, but I actually liked quite a bit of it. It was, and I liked the Big Generator too. I liked them both, but really they weren't Yes albums. They should have left them as cinema albums or whatever they were going to call themselves. But at any rate, they're still making stuff, and you know, I just wish they would make something more Yes-like. You know, like that last album, good album, very mellow album. To me, it was more like a Steve Howe solo album. And Steve should stop singing. I agree with him on that too. He never was a great vocalist, and he doesn't have it. And he just doesn't. They should just let Billy Sherwood do the vocals part and be done with it. Let him take Chris Squire's part. If he's going to play the bass, let him do the vocals too, because he's pretty decent. But anyways, Alan White, he passed, and so another member of my favorite bands is gone. It's always the drummer. I don't know why. The drummer always goes. Anyways, Alan, I think of you, buddy. Thank you for all the years of great music that you gave us with Yes. And so that ends it. That's the last person on the last day of the last episode for this series. It was a fun series to do, although a bit grueling at times, and I've had problems with the internet and stuff like that. It was kind of slowed me down quite a bit. Just on the series part. The other ones, I've been doing them together, lumping them together on the weekend and getting them out so they're good to go all the time. But this one was a little bit more difficult. But anyways, it was great. So I wanted to do my last honorable mentions too before I forget them. So this year passing was Burke Shelley of Budgie, the bass player, vocalist, very high voice, reminded me a bit of Geddy Lee. Ronnie Spector of the Ronettes, Meatloaf, of course, one of the biggest, most famous singers on one of the biggest albums of all time. I never really cared for his music, but he had hit after hit, I think. Betty Davis, the singer, not the actress. Gary Brooker, of course, of Procol Harum. Taylor Hawkins, sad Foo Fighters. I remember him from the Rush induction into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just sad and a bit of a surprise, really. Pamela Rourke of Adam and the Ants. Klaus Schultz of the Tangerine Dream. There you go. Ray Fenwick of Ian Gillan Band. Rick Parnell of Spinal Tap and Atomic Rooster. Vangelis, that great keyboardist who teamed up with John Anderson on the Friends of Mr. Cairo, and they did another album, and Vangelis has a whole history of albums of his own too. Brett Toggle who played, I think he played keyboards. Yeah, he was the keyboardist. He did some work with Fleetwood Mac, David Lee Roth, and Coverdale Page. So there it is. It's all done now. Seems it's all in the books, but it was. I remember Sam Cooke at the beginning and ending with Alan White at the end. So I hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I've enjoyed making it. I hope that the next series I do, which I'm not sure when that's going to be. I thought it might start July 1st, but the internet issue is still kind of uppity right now, so I may hold off and start it August the 1st, which I think will make more sense and give myself a month break. I've got lots of stuff to do still, some stuff that I want to put together, and I'm hoping to continue making these videos. Anyways, I hope you liked and enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and you have a great night. And this video will come out in the morning. The other one should be already on the air. And have a great night. For Prog Monster, goodbye.